Okay, so the question is, where do you believe feelings or emotions come from? Which way should we go? Right.
I'm Noah. And I believe feelings or emotions come from your heart and your head. Like, I think you can have a feeling and emotion that's like, it makes it feel tight or it makes it feel like whatever, but it is sourced from your head being like, this made me feel this way, and now your body's having a physiological response to it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That was deep. That was good. Thanks, Noah.
I'm Jessica. I think that like emotions and feelings come from your like brain and like your consciousness or your subconscious. So like sometimes you might not even realize that like you are the reason you think or feel certain ways, and like that's why you can control it. But most people just don't realize that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool.
I'm Tom. I think, and I guess the first thing that came to mind was like your like the word like inside, like your feelings and emotions come from inside. But then I thought about, oh, what does that mean? And it feels like your personality, I think, is a big role in it. So how you tend to just perceive things in general, and then how you rationalize things and what you feel. And then I think also kind of what Noah said, like from your head, I think your values play into it as well. So if you value something and then it doesn't turn out right, or like that's not what you get, then I think that can feel.
Totally. Cool. Thanks, Noah.
I'm Anna. I see it as like it's all coming from in here, but like sourced, like from like Hashem. Like it's like from that like interconnectedness, that pool, and it's like kind of making me feel.
You're like a Kabbalist in training. So deep. Mm-hmm.
I'm Sophia. I think they come from your head and your heart, but also from external stimuli.
Cool. Right? That all plays into one another for sure.
Hi, I'm Danny. And the first thing that came to mind was experiences. So like any experience that you have brings about an emotion inside you.
Mm-hmm.
And also I thought of like your stomach, because like, I don't know, when like I'm excited I get like butterflies, and then when I'm like nervous I get like a knot in my stomach. So I feel like the stomach was like also something that came to mind.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thanks.
I think emotions are natural, and by that I mean like naturally come with each person, like it's part of our makeup. But even that some are objective, like they're very objective and normal responses to certain phenomena. But I also think that even though all people are probably subject to those certain emotions for certain behaviors, that it's mental how much we can control, like how much or little we feel of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Bianca. Hi. I think emotions come from your head, but I think that they come from your personality, but the way we react or the way we emote those particular feelings are from experiences, and then the way we react is like kind of like an amalgamation of all the experiences we've had, and the ones that are the most influential determine what we emote.
Well, made sense. Awesome. You're all right, by the way.
I'm Emma. I think the feelings and emotions come from inside and just your gut and what you're feeling in the moment.
Cool. Thanks, Emma.
I'm Shayna, and I just honestly don't know.
Cool. I appreciate your honesty.
I'm Adele, and I agree with Shayna.
Well,
I'm Lee. I don't want to say they originate from the heart, or it's kind of like I don't want to say an original place that people say they come from, but I know that, or I think that your head is at least like the filter.
cool. So you're all right, right? And so just like you all gave such deep, profound answers. So just like standing on one foot, very simply put, our thoughts create our emotions, period, right? Our thoughts create our emotions. There's very seldom an emotion that'll come that isn't preceded by some sort of thought, whether conscious or unconscious. Got it so far? Okay. So I'll give you an example. We'll jump right in. I'm going to get a little bit vulnerable and I'm going to share with you the story of my very first heartbreak. Okay? I was 8 years old. True story. I know, rough, trauma. I was 8 years old and I had a huge crush on this boy named Tommy. And you know when like that guy knows you like him, and so every time he looks at you in the hallway, you're like convinced that because he's looking at you, he likes you back. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, okay, I'm not alone. Okay, so I'd walk down the hallways, he'd like look at me, and I'd be like convinced he likes me. Anyways, 8-year-old me, I was on the dance team, he was on the basketball team. And during our lunch break, it was like half lunch, half recess. During recess, the girls would be on one side of the gymnasium practicing for their upcoming dance recital, and the boys would be on the other side of the gymnasium practicing for their upcoming basketball game. Okay, fine. So here I am. There's like a divider wall between the guys and the girls, and in the corner of my eye, I see Tommy coming from the men's side of the gymnasium to the girls' side. Right? So of course, 8-year-old Ayelet, I'm like convinced that he's going to come up to me, tap me on my shoulder, and tell me that he likes me too. Right? So of course, the moment I see him, I get like all sassy and like all my dance moves get like 10 times better. Right? And so he does tap me on my shoulder and he looks me in the eyes, and I remember it like viscerally in my body like it was yesterday. Right? He looks me in the eyes, he goes, Ayelet. I'm like, Tommy. And he's like, I don't like you. Not even a little bit. And you need to get that through your thick head. OMG, right? Okay, so what do you think I did in that moment?
Oh, I punched him.
I should have, but I didn't. I was just in like my body first froze. I tried to play it cool. I'm like, oh, okay, that's okay. I didn't know what to say. I'm like 8 years old. Anyways, what did I do? I grabbed my best friend. I ran to the bathroom, and of course, I cried, and I cried, and I cried. What do you think 8-year-old me was telling myself about me in that moment?
You have a thick head.
I still do, but yeah.
But
What else?
He doesn't like you, which means no one does, or something.
100%. 100%. What else?
I'm probably too
Ugly, stupid, fat, not a good dancer, not good enough, not as good as the girl that he ended up liking, right? And then that's where comparison comes in, right? He ends up liking another girl, and I start comparing myself to this other girl, and then subconsciously I don't even realize how I start dressing like this other girl who Tommy liked, right? Okay, fine. So seeds of thoughts got planted into my head, which planted roots in my emotional memory as a child, right? And so what do you think happened when I got older and I was like old enough to actually start dating, right? So I created a belief. In that moment, I created a belief that all boys are stupid, right? That all boys, SUCK, you know, you name it. Like I just hated guys. And so at 14 years old, I met my first boyfriend. And I had no idea that 8-year-old Ayelet was still this little character in 14-year-old Ayelet's head, telling her all these ideas about guys, about herself, that she's not lovable, she's not worthy of being loved, no one's ever going to actually like her, they might pretend, right? Because Tommy, I thought, liked me in the hallway until he told me he didn't. So I'm going to start believing that guys pretend to like you, but they don't actually like you. Okay, so what happened was first boyfriend, Danny, 14 years old. Okay, I get a boyfriend. We date for a couple months, and he was like head over heels.
That's long.
We ended up dating for a lot longer, but just hold on.
Okay.
Hold on to your
That's
seats.
a long time for 14.
It is a long time for 14. I was very committed.
Mine is
Okay, so anyways, we start dating, and I didn't realize these sabotaging thoughts that were haunting me into my teenage years, right? And I just forgot about them. 8-year-old Daya, I forgot about the experience from when I was 8 years old. Okay, so I start dating Danny. A couple of months into dating, I get a call from a girl who was very excited to tell me that Danny's been cheating on you. Okay? I love how like dramatic this is for you.
This is so hard.
So what do you think happened, right? For like 8-year-old Ayelet has a belief. 14-year-old Ayelet just had another experience that stacked on to 8-year-old Ayelet's experience, making that belief even stronger, right? So now I'm like super convinced that all guys suck, right? And then a year later, I get a call from my best friend. You know, I'm home, it's winter, middle of the night. I get a call from my best friend, and at first I thought she was laughing hysterically on the other line, but it turned out she was crying hysterically. It's like 2 a.m. And I'm like, what happened? And she goes, I was at a party and a guy just took advantage of me. Okay? Again, stacking of one experience after another that convinced me that all guys fit into this box, fit into this category, right, of belief. So I created a belief based on these individual experiences. Yeah? So far, so good? Okay. It took me years to undo the wiring of my subconscious mind that was convinced about an idea. Now, whether that idea has to do with boys or whether it has to do with what we want to accomplish when we get older, right? Did I tell you the example about the little boy at the beach last week when you came with the Superman towel?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, right? Like you come into this world and you're just full of optimism, right? The world is Play-Doh. You look outside the window as a child and it's like there's no ideas, there's no beliefs, there's no cognitions yet to attach to experiences. So rule number 1, it's important to know how experiences are experiences, like the facts are the facts, and then there's the story that we attach to the facts, right? Just because Tommy didn't like me, does that mean that I'm not lovable? Yes or no?
Yes.
No.
Wait.
It means, right, trick question.
Wait.
Does it mean I'm not lovable? No.
No.
Of course I'm lovable.
No, yeah.
Right?
That's what I'm saying.
Right, I know, I got you. Right? Just because Tommy didn't love me, didn't mean that I was never going to be loved by a guy ever again. No, of course not. I'm married now. My husband loves me, right? So we have to learn, and this is what we're going to do today, is how to unclutch, release the grip that our mind has to a particular experience and unclutch from the meaning and the definition that we give to that experience. Yeah? I'm sure everyone here can think back to an experience from childhood that wasn't necessarily the most fun experience for them. Someone made fun of them, a teacher called you stupid, your parents said something that you didn't like, and it created a belief that you now have about yourself, whether you're aware of it or not, and it ends up sabotaging other relationships in your life, whether you're aware of it or not. Yeah? So far, so good? Okay, questions? Okay. So I want to read a passage from this book. Is everyone here familiar with who Rabbi Nachman is? Okay, so he's like a huge Torah sage, like a Jewish guru, if we can call it, a Jewish guru. And he talks about this idea of imagination, right? We all have imagination, meaning Tommy told me he didn't like me. So where did my imagination go? I created this whole story in my head about me not being lovable, about me never going to be loved by a guy ever again, right? That's my imagination. It wasn't true. It wasn't based in reality. It wasn't based in facts. It's my imagination. So Rabbi Nachman talks about 2 types of imaginations, right? There's the fallen imagination and there's the elevated imagination. One comes from dark energy. The other one comes from light energy. Okay, so let's read together, and if you have any questions, just stop me. Okay. Before I start reading, I just want to differentiate between this dark source of imagination and this light source of imagination. The dark source of imagination is called illusion. The light source of imagination is called visualization. Okay, so we're talking about illusion versus visualization. Okay. So he begins by saying, first of all, the word for imagination in Hebrew is medame, dimion. Okay? He says, imagination as illusion. Who hasn't, at some time in life, let his imagination run wild? When we allow this to happen, our thoughts become subject to all sorts of confusion and chaos. Our minds see everything as darkness, as night. Take, for example, what happens when we let our imaginations focus on something that we fear. Rabbi Nachman teaches most things that people fear cannot harm them, right? There's actually like a statistic that was done, and it said 99% of our worries never come true. That's huge. We're taking up so much mental space and mental energy on worrying about things that 99% of the time never came or come true, okay? We may even clearly realize that what we fear cannot harm us. Yet we still have these phobias which we cannot overcome, right? So full disclosure, I have till this day, and I'm still working on it, a fear of cockroaches. Okay, that's like my thing. And so the other day, this is just to show you the power of illusion as imagination, right? The other day I'm at a cafe with my friend, and I'm going to the bathroom, and right outside the bathroom door, I saw this little black thing, and I just jumped and I screamed. Okay, and when I took a second look, I realized it was a walnut. Right? But the mind, through illusion, will play tricks on us and convince us of things that are not there. Right? How many of us have had a conversation with a friend and misinterpreted what they said, and then we end up spiraling the whole thing out of control just because of misinterpretation, because of illusion. Right? Cockroach to walnut. I'll never forget it. So we may end up saying things like, my entire world is black, and we really think it is, just because we've imagined the worst possible scenario and we've convinced itself as reality, right? We imagine the worst possible scenario and we're convinced that it's reality, right? Did I tell you about the time, like in India, when I was stuck in the tornado? I told you about that last week. Yeah. Right? I'm there sitting under this huge, massive transportation truck, and my mind, like without a doubt, is going to death. I'm like, you get confronted with life the most when you think you're about to die, ironically. Right? And so in that moment, my imagination went wild. Yet here I am today. 99% of what we worry about never comes true. The darkness of illusion has shut out the light completely. It has closed our minds to the wisdom and understanding which would normally help us see past a situation and even resolve it. When I was stuck under that transportation truck in the middle of like the Wizard of Oz tornado, there was nothing that could have been said to convince me that we were going to be okay, right? Like in that moment, I just let my thoughts run wild and my emotions were following my thoughts, and I was just in panic and fear. We must do everything we can to avoid such anxiety and the ensuing depression, because it is the worst mental state possible. Illusion is the worst mental state possible. It's where a lot of mental illness stems from as well. Okay? And it's not only enough through fears and phobias that illusion plays havoc with our lives. Rabbi Nachman, after delivering a lesson in which he referred to one's desires as evil inclination and illusory and dreamlike, said, we should give the evil one a new name. From now on, we should call the evil one, this evil force in the world, imagination. So that's how destructive, yet also constructive, which we'll learn soon, imagination could be. And it's up to us to learn how to control which direction our imagination is going. Yeah? Is everyone on board so far? Are we all following? Are we awake? Okay. We end up imagining ourselves different than we really are. We might think we are indispensable, and this leads to arrogance and strife. We might imagine our family life is okay when it is sometimes falling apart right in front of our eyes. We delude ourselves into thinking that we have or can achieve financial security, something which is virtually impossible, and sometimes we even create illusions about our spiritual achievements and religious commitments. Okay, I'm just going to skip. Okay, so let's shift. We all understand what imagination from like a dark source looks like, yeah? Okay, so now let's shift. What does imagination look from a light source? And how does that help us control our emotions better? So he says, imagination as creative visualization. There is, however, another side to imagination, which, rather than deceiving us into darkness, brings light, wisdom, and understanding into our minds. This is the quality of imagination through which we can turn even the darkest nights into the brightest days. It is the imagination as creative visualization. I just want to skip the parts that are just a lot of talk. Okay. So throughout Rabbi Nachman's teachings, there are references to imagination. Here are but some of his suggestions for making use of the imagination's positive forces. He says, which we kind of touched upon last week, human thought has tremendous potential, right? This is like profound what he's about to say. When we concentrate our thoughts on something and really imagine it to be, we can actually force that thing to happen. Right? Remember I told you last week that I was sitting at a table with my girlfriends over lunch and I said, by the end of May, I'm going to be married. And my wedding day was May 29th. Remember? What was going on there? I was sending super focused, intense energy onto a certain visualization. And that visualization was maybe like an image of my wedding day happening by the end of May, for example, or a vision of my future husband, who I didn't yet know at the time. Right? So where your mind goes, energy flows. To accomplish this, we must visualize every step of the desired result in great detail. Right? So when I have a client come to me and she says, I want to get married, the first thing I'll ask her is, by when? And she just kind of looks at me and turns red and she's like, oh my God, this just got really real. And the idea of when scares her. But like, it's like we can want and we can want to want. Do you know the difference? Right? Like we all want a boyfriend or a husband or whatever it is, but then there's like wanting to want. We all really want to want until we want. Do you get what I'm, okay. Diffused and generalized thought will not work. But when every faculty of the mind is intensely focused on that which we wish to see happening, we can genuinely exert great influence on all sorts of matters in the world. Okay, so thoughts, comments on this particular idea of like the imagination and where it can go. Any feedback? What do you guys think? Do you guys have an experience in your own life where, your imagination ran wild and it either created a scenario for you or it like totally scared you into thinking something that wasn't actually real?
Kind of the opposite. I just don't think I buy into it. Like, I think you can focus your energy on something and you can have so much power over your own thoughts, but you can't control the world around you. So I struggle with what you're saying because I don't know how what you are, even if you give off an energy, I understand perhaps how certain people could be attracted to that, or you might be more aware of something if you're giving it more conscious thought. Like you were saying with your coffee example, you were thinking about coffee like you noticed. So you were noticing it more. I think that I like that idea, but I have a hard time believing that just because you say something to yourself in a very definitive way that it means external forces will enable it to happen.
Okay, so, it's like what you're saying is like when you want to buy a car and then all of a sudden the car you want shows up everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? So you think like just because your mind's on something, then that's what will show up. Okay, so like how do you explain then that I said I'll be married by the end of May and then May 29th was my wedding day?
I don't know.
So that's the part that we're tapping into, right? It's like you don't have to know how it works.
When did you say that?
What month did I say that? I have to look at it. It was 6 months earlier.
And
what, 6 months before?
And when did you meet your husband?
We met December 9th on his birthday.
Interesting. December, and then you got married by May.
By May.
December, January, February, March, April, May.
We dated for
Which
a short
means that
period
you
of time.
said it, and then a month later you met him.
Yeah. We met like within a couple weeks of me saying it.
Interesting.
Do you think it's possible that maybe you said it because that was coming?
Or you were looking now for something more serious officially.
I mean, I've been saying it for a long, like, it's like the want was there. The wanting to want was there for years, right? Like, every time I would date a guy, the intention wasn't to not get married. You know, I didn't want to, like, waste my time, right? So even if it was subconscious, there was always an intention that this is for the long term. And the fact that it worked out that I said it and then ended up meeting my actual soulmate, because there's plenty of men, that doesn't mean they're all your soulmate.
Yeah.
Right? So how do you explain that it was my soulmate that showed up after I said that? And that's one example out of many. I can give many. Like, for example, Julia, just because we're talking about, like, not knowing how it happens, I can't even fully explain how it if I have a remote control in my hand, I think we gave this example last week, I can't explain to you how by pressing a button the television turns on. Right? Or I can't explain to you that when I flick a switch, the light turns on. What's happening in the circuitry? Right? It takes, like, someone who knows what's actually happening to explain it. But, like, what I can give another example. I remember one of my trips to India, I needed to there was a program, a very expensive program that cost $13,000 for a 1-month program. And I was, like, adamant about getting to that program. I was, like, in my early 20s, but I needed to make $13,000 in a matter of 1 week because the program, I had to be on a plane in 1 week.
Oh my god, you did not.
So I set a very strong intention, and I said,
What was the program that you wanted to go? Like,
it was a program in India, like the things that that I talk about and that I teach. It's a lot of that stuff.
okay.
Yeah, with the guru, I spoke about it last week.
Oh, okay. Oh, that was a program. Okay.
Like, that was like my intro into that world was, whatever. But I still at the time had, like, it wasn't my first time in India. It was like I had done already a couple programs, and this particular program I wanted to go to. But I said, I'm not digging out of, like, my savings. I'm not going into debt to pay for this program. So I said, okay, you know what? I need to make sure that $13,000 is manifested for me in a matter of a couple days, because I still needed to book my flight. I needed to get on the plane, and I need to arrive to India, which is a 20-hour flight. Okay, fine. I can't tell you how it happened, but literally the moment I declared that I was going to this program with confidence, and I saw myself there. I saw myself sitting in India in this ashram temple thing, right? So that same day, I get a call from my credit card that I've had for years, and they said, oh, from years ago, we've owed you $5,000 that we've never, like a rebate on something that we've never given you. That never happens. Okay? That was $5,000 closer. Okay? We're still not there yet. Okay, so then I'm driving to Starbucks. I was with my friend. I'm driving to Starbucks, and I'm in the parking lot, and I have the right of way, and this guy, he backs up into my bumper, and he was, like, so apologetic. He gets out of the car. He's like, I'm so sorry. He goes, I just moved to this country from Korea. Like, I don't have car insurance yet. Like, please, can I just write you a check? He goes, can I just write you a check so that we don't have to go through insurance? He goes, how's $5,000? Okay, fine. So another $5,000. First, a little tiny scratch. A scratch that maybe costs like a couple $100 to fix. Okay, that's $10,000 closer in a matter of a couple days to me sitting in this program. Okay, fine. So I was also life coaching at the time. And so within a matter of 24 hours, I needed to make $3,000. So literally within one day, I had client after client after client just show up out of the woodworks, equaling exactly $3,000 of payments. Boom, $13,000 in my bank account in a couple days that allowed me to go to India to be in this program. Okay, so how did that happen? I don't know. I'm not God. I'm not here to say how it happens. But what I do know is I believe our Jewish sages when they say, where your mind goes, energy flows. And if you send your thoughts in a particular direction and you focus on the end result with so much clarity and intensity, things do manifest. It's almost inevitable. But we need to learn how to clear away the clutter that is distracting us from focusing on our end goal. Okay? Where were we?
Do you think that because you've studied a lot of this type of stuff, when you want to manifest something, it happens for you because you've learned this more so than someone, for example, like us or me, because like we haven't studied the way it works? Like I can like say I want to do this today, or like I want a coffee by the end of the, I want a free coffee, and then because I haven't studied, or like wherever your like mind goes, energy flows, like what if I haven't done it properly? Technically, like do you think that that would probably be the difference between whether or not we manifest things?
So I think that there is a proper way to do it, but there's not really a wrong way to do it, if that makes sense. And do I think that because I have more experience, like I'm able to just pop the negative thought bubbles way more quickly, perhaps? Maybe that's just what I get as a result of doing this work and teaching this work for so many years versus someone who's just coming into it. Does that mean that if we start taking your thoughts and aligning them to your purpose and getting super clear that it can't happen for you overnight? Absolutely not. It can absolutely happen for you overnight. I'll give you an example. I have a client in the area who she owns a hair salon, right? And she sells wigs. And her biggest stream of income is through the selling of wigs. Now, for the last year, she's only been cutting hair and dyeing hair, which is not a stream of, it's not pocket money for her. It's just paying the expenses. So she came to me a few months ago on she's not a stressful person. So she's not like a stressed out person, but she came to me in a place where she's like, I don't know what to do. My business is failing. I have a toddler at home and another baby on the way. So you can imagine finances are getting smaller, family's getting bigger. That equals stress and negative thoughts like crazy. Fear, illusion, where are we going to end up? Are we going to end up homeless? Do we have to sell our house? Right? So she came to me. We started working on what are her doubts around what does she think is preventing her from creating financial abundance? And she had this thought bubble pop up into her head, and it literally said, oh my gosh, I forgot how awesome I am. Like that was her block. That was blocking the cosmos from showering her with abundance. Was I forgot how awesome I am. So she was like preventing the abundance from showering her. So once we got into the work a little bit, within a matter of a couple of weeks, she had called me a month after working together, and she said, I don't know what just happened, but as a result of focusing intense attention on a desired outcome, she goes, my business literally made 100,000 shekel in the last month. It's never seen that type of money, right? In a matter of a month.
So, but
and
then
she was new to this.
But then technically that means that you guys did work together to clear up a source that was blocking the manifestation that she was doing. So because you then would have yourself been aware to your own body and the way you work and the way your negative thought bubbles could pop up and you pop them, that means that like that could be the difference between me and you.
It's just awareness. The difference is awareness. I'm aware.
But I could target anything.
What do you mean?
Like, so her one thing was that she forgot how awesome she was. Say, like, I was thinking about all the things that would stop me from X, Y, and Z. Like, how would I know that that was the deep-rooted issue and not something else, and then I was targeting all of my energy on this other thing?
So that's why we had to get to the core of her deep. So on the surface level, it's like, I forgot how awesome I am. Underneath that, we determined and targeted that there was really a thought bubble, a belief that she had about herself that says, I'm not good enough. And she was comparing herself to other hairstylists that she thought were better than her. So this idea of I'm not good enough will block abundance from showering. So you're right, you do have to get to the root, and sometimes if you have someone to help you access it, it expedites it. But to answer your original question, just because I've been doing it for 10 years and she's been doing it for 1 month doesn't mean that the results can't happen for anyone. Okay. You know what I mean?
Can I add something real quick? I just wanted to add that something that I've been learning
is that a lot of times it seems like our end goal, like what we're focused on, like is the result. You know, like for us, it's like, I want that money, you know? But from like a higher standpoint, the goal doesn't, whether you get it or not, the point is who you become in the process, you know? So like becoming a person who thinks that they're good enough ends up being the actual goal, whereas for us, it's like, wow, now I made all this money. You know what I mean? So it's sort of like, having that goal of manifestation, it's not necessarily receiving that end result. It's the real prize at the end is who you become through the process.
100%. Thank you for making that clarification. That's super important, right?
So it's not like this like voodoo magic trick where it's like, oh, I'm gonna get everything I want. It's just a matter of like, how do I become the product that I want to bring into the world?
Absolutely.
And through that, you end up getting, you know, the things that you want because you're the person you want to be.
Absolutely. Like, happy vibes attract happy tribes. Period. Right? So like you want to become a certain person and experience happiness because, okay, fine. So I was able to have the cosmos manifest $13,000 for me in 1 week. But what does that matter a year later, 10 years later? Who cares? Who cares? The fact is, when I started working on my beliefs and my insecurities and my self-doubt, right? When I started to recognize, shift my perception from, oh, Tommy didn't like me, so therefore I'm not lovable, to I'm freaking awesome, right? That's when whatever was going on in my inner world would become a mirror for everything that's happening in my outer world.
But then you could argue also that the fact that you said, I want to get married by the end of May, made you, regardless of whether or not you had met, like, you could have met your soulmate, and then, like, it could have not been him. You could have also, if you didn't like him, you could have met someone else. Do you know what I mean? Like, because now you're thinking about it and you're going head on to, like, find this person. Now you're looking, and it's a selective attention bias. So, like, you're now going to put all of your energy towards finding this perfect person, and if it weren't him, like say you were meeting other guys before him even, you could have been like, not good enough, not good enough, like sifting, and then you found him.
So,
you know what I mean?
Yes. So based on what you're saying is like rule number 2, I don't know if we spoke about this so much last week, is let go of the how. The how is like God's territory.
Right, no, but it's a selective. Like, you're not even, it could be subconscious. Do you know what I mean? Like, you could just be like, well, now I've decided this, and I'm not going to, like, push it, but now I'm paying attention, and I'm kind of, like, steering my way to do that.
Right, because I was clear.
Exactly. But with yourself.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Right, is that a question or is that a statement?
No, a statement. You're being clear with yourself, and you're like, okay, Yellet, now let's do this.
Exactly.
So it's not the universe.
It's a merging of the two, because I could be clear with myself, but if God doesn't want to send me my soulmate, it's just not going to happen.
Okay.
Right? Like, I can be clear with myself, but I'm not in control of the serendipitous behind the scenes stuff.
Right. Of him actually being there.
Which, if you actually found out the details of how we met and everything, like I put him off for a couple months. He was suggested to me by a few people, and I didn't think it was the right person.
Even before you manifested.
Yeah, so it was like Hashem knew I was going to get clear even before I got clear.
Interesting.
So there's that's a whole nother story. We'll be here for another 20 extra minutes, which we don't have today, but we can do it another time.
Can I ask a quick question?
Mhm.
What would your perspective be if you said, I want to be married by the end of May, and it didn't happen? What would your mind be?
Has it ever happened to you?
Yes. So I would just take full responsibility and say it's because I wasn't playful enough. Meaning, when we're so serious about the outcome and so attached to the outcome, like my coffee example from last week, right? Because I was so like unattached to the outcome and playful about it, I was playing with it. The cosmos responds to playful energy, right? So in that, if it didn't happen, did I give you the example of like the speaking gig?
Yeah.
And a lot that didn't work out, right? It doesn't always work out. And I'm very clear when things don't work out, I'm just way too attached to the outcome. Yeah.
Is there ever a time that you're not too attached to the outcome and it still just doesn't work out?
it's probably because I have a blind spot that I didn't
Okay.
pick up on. Because it's like you have to come into this whole this work knowing that Hashem wants to give. Like a parent wants to give to their child. When does a parent not want to give to the child? When the child feels entitled or is like pushing and screaming for something or is too serious. The moment the child is experiencing gratitude, then the parent just wants to give more and more and more. I saw a hand.
Curves.
I don't know if it's like okay to ask this, but this is just like something I was like mulling over. Like with your clients and like people that you give these talks to, for people that aren't as solidified in their belief of God, like how do you get, because like it's like you're speaking a language that I don't want to say falls on deaf ears, but like for someone that really does want to achieve the goal that you can provide for them, how can you provide that? How can you help them reach that goal if you can't? If the journey of getting there that you're providing might not be the exact same one that works.
So I would start by asking them to define God.
Okay.
Right? So like, Bianca, define God.
I mean, I'm not speaking of myself. Like I believe in God, but like.
So let's assume I was working with someone. First of all, someone came to me and they were just a total skeptic, non-believer, not spiritual. They wanted to like attack everything I was saying. I wouldn't work with them anyways because it would require months for me to just get them to a place where they're even open to hearing what I'm saying. Right? So like it requires a certain amount of openness. You don't have to be, like a religious human being for this to be applicable. I would ask the person who comes to me who says, well, I don't believe in God, so why should this work for me? Or why should I believe in this? I'd say, do you believe in something? And they usually say yes. Okay, what is that something you believe in? Well, I believe there's some sort of like creative force in the world. I believe there's like a higher consciousness. I believe that there is some energy running this entire game down here on planet Earth. But like, I wouldn't call it God. Okay, so let's take whatever it is that you believe in, call it whatever you want, and let's connect to that then. And that's where I would start with that person. Okay, so back to what we were talking about, which is how to control our emotions. Everyone always loves manifestation. It's like the most fun subject, but like, and they relate. But today's subject is how to control your emotions. So what did we say? We said that emotions are preceded by thoughts. They go together. Our thoughts control our emotions. If I think that Tommy doesn't like me, I'm going to start crying. I'm going to think I'm not good enough. I'm going to start self-hating, right? So it requires, and this is where we're like entering into a little bit deeper territory. So just try to follow what I'm saying, because if you like miss 1 minute, then it can totally be lost, yeah? So if you imagine your thoughts, right, like bubbles in a fish tank. Okay, so when you see a bunch, like there's fishies at the bottom and they start blowing bubbles, and you see a bunch of bubbles traveling from the bottom of the fish tank to the top of the fish tank, from our perspective, all we're seeing is a cluster of bubbles. Yeah? Now, if you take a closer look, what you'll begin to notice is that there's actually a space between each bubble. Each bubble represents our thoughts. The space between the bubbles represents bliss, ecstasy, non-attachment, right? So the bubble itself is a thought, I'm not good enough. The space between the bubble is that space that, like, in the East, monks go to the Himalayas and spend their lives meditating to access that place between the thoughts. Now, it's been studied that a human being thinks of anywhere between 50,000 and 70,000 thoughts per day. 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts per day. Right now, we said that 99% of the things we worry about never come true. So a majority of those thoughts also, they say 80% of those 70,000 thoughts, for those of us who are more like numerically oriented, 80% of those 70,000 thoughts we're thinking per day are usually negative, and we don't even realize it. Right? That's a huge problem. We're treating our minds like garbage cans. Right? But yet we expect to be happy. We expect to be blissful. We expect to be joyful, right? What does 70,000 thoughts per day break down to? It breaks down to about 48 thoughts per minute. Now, if you really think about it, right, 48 thoughts per minute, that's almost 60 seconds in a minute. That's almost 1 thought per second, a little less than 1 thought per second, right? Now, if we were to look at our brain under a scan, you would see that each one of our thoughts is not connected to the previous thought, that there's always a space between the thought, right? So like this garbage can is like, oh, wait, what did I have for breakfast? Did I even eat breakfast? I don't know. I'm kind of hungry now. Wait, did I pay my rent today? Oh my gosh, I think I need to walk my dog. Oh my, what if my dog pees all over my carpet? Wait, did I call my accountant? Did I pay my rent? How much did I pay today? What else do I owe? Oh my gosh, I love that dress. I love that dress on you. You look so good. Wait, do I look good? I don't even know if I look good. Does he notice my pimple? Right? Like that's like what our mind looks like when we're not aware that we're thinking what we're thinking. Okay, I just said a lot in a short period of time. So I'm going to just take questions and then we're going to move on if there are any questions. By the way, Marav, can you just do a time check because my watch froze? 2:20. So just keep me in check. 2:30? 2:20? Okay, cool. We're good. Okay, questions, comments. Is everyone following what I'm saying so far? Okay. So today's goal is to get a glimpse of what goes on in our own minds so that we can start to gain better control over our thoughts, which by default will give us better control over our emotions. Okay, so we're going to enter into a meditation together. It's a 3-step meditation. There was so much more that had to be said, but for lack of time, we'll just jump in. This stuff is, I'm saying a lot in a short period of time. What?
It was fine.
No, you're fine. Okay, so everyone take out a piece of paper and a pen.
Absolute. I was gonna say unimportant. It's okay, this is my EKG notes. Just throw those away.
EKG.
And also, just like an extra little cute thing before we start, read to me what this says on this piece.
Impossible.
It says
Kim.
Impossible.
What does it say though? Impossible or I'm possible?
I'm possible.
I'm possible? Kim possible. You've got a wild imagination. Right? Impossible, I'm possible, illusion, visualization. You just visualized a space between the I'm and possible, right? So you got I'm possible. You saw it for what it was, or, illusion, whatever. It's the way I wrote it. But if we visualize a new reality, then we can enter in to this world as Play-Doh, right? When I wake up in the morning, I look outside the window, I'm like, wow, what ideas can create worlds for me today? Because ideas are so, you can go anywhere you want with ideas.
Flexible.
They're flexible. Okay, cool. So this is a 3-step meditation. Each part is a couple minutes long. Okay, so step 1, I want us to become familiar with the landscape of our subconscious minds. Okay, so what we're going to do is, when I tell you to, we're going to close our eyes, and I want you to just, every single thought that comes to mind, you write it down. Nobody's going to read this. This is just for your own keepsake. Okay, so every thought, and it could be as small as, I have to go to the bathroom. I'm hungry. It's cold in here. It's hot in here. I'm tired, right? Whatever it is. I love what she's saying. She's boring. Whatever it is, everything. I'm not going to read it. Okay, every thought that comes up, the moment a thought comes to mind, open your eyes, write it down, close your eyes, and watch the movie of your mind. So you imagine like a projector screen coming out of your forehead, and you're just watching the whole movie that's going on in here. And just keep writing. If you're doing it correctly, you'll realize the mumbo jumbo, that goes on in our head. You should have a whole list of unrelated, disconnected thoughts. Okay? So let's all close our eyes. And let's go ahead and take in a deep breath. And exhale deeply. And begin just noticing where your mind goes and write it down. If your mind is drifting off to outer space, bring it back. Every thought that comes up, write it down, no matter how big or how small. Okay, about another 30 seconds. Just be intense in this exercise. The more intense you are, the more effective it is. Like, be focused on it. You're doing great, don't worry.
Oh my God.
And you can put your pens down. Okay, so who here, as a result of doing this exercise, has like a list of just like a bunch of random thoughts written down? Right, okay. Does anyone want to share? There's 2 more steps to the process. We're not ending there, but does anyone want to share what they realized about their mind as a result of doing this exercise?
Yeah. Does anyone else want to go? Should I take it away?
You can both go, it's okay.
You can go first. So I thought it was really funny because at one point you said like, if you're in outer space, like come back, and literally like my mind just like was immediately in space, and I was like, and then from there it literally went from there like SpongeBob. Like I don't know any connection, but I was like, okay, you need to take a like step down. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. See, random, SpongeBob.
I was really in a connected way. I was really in touch with my senses. My senses, I think, drive a lot of my thoughts, which I had no idea, I think, until this activity, because now, looking at my list, they're kind of on the same page. I mean, literally. But, like, they're kind of, all I was doing was listening to my senses, and my senses were then making an opinion, or making a thought out of what I was. For example, I wrote, you were sniffling. I wonder if she's sick or crying from this exercise. Exercise is a hard word to spell. Just like thought after thought after thought was just like random, but I was like hearing that. My first thing is stop chewing the gum and just relax, which is a sensation of feeling it was just like interesting that I would never, and I was self-conscious of how loud my marker was. I was like, do you think everyone's writing this much? Like, which was a sound, but it turned into a thought of like, what are other people doing? What do you think they're writing about? Like, are people also looking around the room? And then I was just like, my senses of using my eyes, the sounds, the feelings I was, like the touch, like whatever. Seeing you look at the camera, I was like, wow, I'd never be able to have a camera and look at myself or like accidentally look. And I just never really thought about how my senses would drive my thoughts in a way that like formed an opinion without me even attempting to have an opinion. It was just like really interesting.
That's really profound.
Really?
Yeah, no, that's amazing, because this is you doing the exercise aware. There's a part of your mind, the mind is separated into categories. There's a part of your mind that's aware that you're doing the exercise.
Right.
Imagine what happens when you're not aware of what goes on in your mind.
Oh, for sure. Well, this is like 10 times more.
Right.
But
Cool.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that like when you said that like a million thoughts go through our heads, I was like, I don't think so. Like, cause I was like I don't know. I feel like when teachers would always be like, okay, 10 minutes to write, I'd always be like I have nothing to write about. Like I don't have any like thought. I've always like thought that there was like no thoughts in my mind that much unless like I try to think about them. But then right now I like just kept writing and writing and I was like, wait, she's totally right. Like, and they're so disconnected. Like they have nothing to do with each other. Like not even important stuff. It's just like I literally was like, I wonder how a yellow drops her thing.
I can teach you, it's so easy.
Yeah.
I was thinking of that too.
Really? And then I wrote, I wonder
enter
what
to your
everyone else is
thoughts.
thinking about. Like, it's just like so many thoughts, and I never realized this. Like, I actually thought there was like nothing.
Isn't that profound?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
On a more negative note here. I have a very unfortunate Jewish gene that my mind is very, very active.
Mm-hmm.
And
Welcome to the club.
and like my mind is super, super active, and I talked about this with my cousin before, that a lot of my negative thoughts I push down like a beach ball into water. And she said it like this: when you push down a beach ball, the more you push it down, the harder it is, and then it's just gonna go whoop. And that's what happened. And so a lot of my thoughts in here are really negative, and I kind of wish they weren't, because I'm really a very positive person. Like, I'm not just saying that as like an Instagram bio kind of thing. Like, I really am very positive. But a lot of my thoughts were negative because you let me. Like, you told me I could do whatever, and so I didn't feel like I had to like. So it's your but like I felt like I could just like think about whatever. And then there was a part of me that was like, maybe I should talk about this. And then I was thinking maybe other people are sharing these same negativities that we should talk about. And then I ended up saying like my hand hurts and then I miss my sibling. So it ended on like a positive note. But I realized that I have a lot of negative thoughts that I push away and I don't handle them well.
Okay, so amazing. So this is a great intro into where we're going to go. And what I'm going to say about the next two steps is this is not just a intellectual process. This is not just a, oh, cool, I learned this fun meditation exercise and now I'm going to leave and I have a better awareness of what goes on in my subconscious. This is an actual technique that should be like a part, like it's as close to you as your right hand, meaning you take it with you into your day-to-day and implement what we're going to be doing, which is called unclutching, into your day-to-day lives. So that when the negative thoughts come up, they don't end up becoming suppressed like the beach ball, right? But we end up just releasing that strong grip that we have onto those thoughts. I had such a strong grip on the thought that I'm not lovable when Tommy told me he didn't like me, right? So I was like attached to that belief. So unclutching is like just one surface level step to letting go of all the ideas that we have in our mind that create the landscape of like negative thinking per se, okay? Step two. Step two, we're putting down our pens and paper. We don't need them anymore. And I want you to imagine that there's just a projector screen coming out of your forehead and you're watching the play that's going on in your mind. So basically it's the same as step one, just you're not writing it down. This time you're just becoming aware of the witness, right? Like there's the thinking, but then there's the other part of you that's aware that you're thinking. Whoa, right? So I want you to just start to get acquainted with the awareness of the thinking. There's the thought, and then it's like, oh, I'm thinking, but who's that's aware that I'm thinking?
Wait, did you read the power of now? Oh.
I think.
This just made me think of something that I have one friend that whenever we're hanging out, we always have like two simultaneous conversations going on. One that's like about the thing we're talking about, and one about the conversation and the way it's progressing, and like, it's weird.
It's trippy. Yeah, exactly.
I was just gonna say, I was reading, I don't know if you recommended it or who, but I was reading The Power of Now, and they literally, the author said the same exact like sentence, and he was like, when like Descartes said, I think, therefore I am, it's like kind of wrong because he's attaching himself to the thoughts, like there's like your thoughts and then there's yourself, so it's like not the same.
100%. It's not kind of wrong, it's just wrong. It's just like not true, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we're just going to become aware of the witness. Yeah? Is everyone clear what I mean by that? Right, there's the thoughts and then there's whatever that is that's thinking the thoughts. So just watch your mind like a movie. Okay, so let's close our eyes and we'll take 3 minutes to just watch the movie of our mind. See what comes up. And begin. If your mind wanders into outer space, bring it back. Notice the witness. another minute to just be super focused. Notice the thinking. If you're drifting, sit up straight. Continue to notice the thinking. Last 10 seconds. Notice the thinking. And open your eyes. We're going to transition directly into step 3, unless someone wants to share that experience. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah? Everyone's okay? Okay. We're going to transition into step 3. There's actually an added bonus step that I'm going to incorporate today, which is just like accessing the soul space. But step 3 is entering into unclutched space. Okay? So unclutched is the space between the thoughts that we spoke about. Right? We wrote down a whole list of thoughts that go on in our minds. Yeah? So in between each thought, there actually exists a space. In between each bubble, there exists a space. Okay, so what we want to try to do is bring that 48 thoughts per minute number down to maybe 30 thoughts per minute or 20 thoughts per minute, meaning we're making the space between the thoughts longer and the thoughts themselves more sporadic. Okay, so how do we do this? Again, we're going to watch the movie of our mind. Only this time, every time a thought comes, we just tell ourselves, unclutch. I'm going to repeat unclutch so that every time you're in a thought, you're unclutching from it. Meaning, if you're holding on tightly to a thought, you're not unclutched. You're just releasing the thought, like a bubble popping. So you can just notice the bubbles popping. That's unclutching. Okay, questions? Okay, so everyone close your eyes. Just 2 more minutes. Taking a deep breath. And begin to unclutch, access the space between the thoughts. When a thought comes up, simply say to yourself, unclutch. 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 And with our eyes still closed, I want us to try to access whatever soul, neshama, means to you. It might be that witness that we just came in contact with. Who is it that is thinking the thoughts? And become